Good morning, Paul and Bhargav. It's Wednesday, the 19th of April. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 19 issues. In North Asia, we covered 6, and for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, we covered 5. In South Asia, we covered 15 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Thank you.
In Indonesia, the Indonesian armed forces have launched an operation in Papua to increase their alertness and take a harsher offensive against the West Papua National Liberation Army. The chief of the Indonesian National Armed Forces said that the military will move away from the soft approach that it had been taking to a harsher approach. In terms of the Induga attack that happened over the weekend, they've admitted to 3 dead now, before they had claimed just 1 was killed. The West Papua National Liberation Army has said that the military's actions and Indonesia and New Zealand's refusal to sit at the table is threatening the safety of the captive New Zealand pilots.
Okay, this is very interesting. Uday, obviously you and I, a couple of our team, are working on an analysis to work out where it's heading. There's really only 3 scenarios in Papua. The first one's extremely unlikely, but it's really the only one that's tenable in the long term. And that is that the Indonesian government moves away from discrimination, oppression, suppression, and over-aggression and bleeding of resources for their own gain and starts to develop Eastern Indonesia in line with the Western Indonesian development standards. Again, today we see an indicator that that's extremely unlikely to occur. After 50 years of an overuse and impunity in the use of force, they're going to lean on that, which hasn't worked for 50 years. It escalates the risk paradigm, and it really shows a lack of leadership, a lack of wisdom in Indonesia, and amplifies everything that's bad about the use of violence. So instead of unifying the country and developing it in accordance with their own doctrine, namely Pancasila, they make Pancasila and their own history and culture hypocritical. So unfortunately, the other 2 scenarios involve an escalation of violence, one led by the military and one in line with that, and that is an escalation by the TNI because they're violent to start with, they're psychopathic to start with, and if you throw fuel on a fire, you do tend to get flames. I look forward to working on this analysis with you. Go ahead, Uday.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. In Myanmar, the United Wa State Army stated that mining activities in the Wa region will be suspended from August. The state is a major producer of tin. We'll be sending some details about these developments and the mining there over to you later.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Also regarding Myanmar, Russia is using a pipeline from Rakhine State in Myanmar that transports oil to China's Yunnan province to transport about 70,000 barrels of oil per day. This exceeds Myanmar's refining capacity, so it is believed that most of the oil is reaching China. The pipeline is jointly owned by China and Myanmar.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you.
In the Philippines yesterday, 7,000 people protested in Cagayan province against the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Act with the U.S. The U.S. under the act will be allowed access to 2 military bases in the province, and it will be allowed to develop them also, so the locals don't want that there.
Okay, good, thanks.
In South Asia, in India, border tensions are brewing between Assam and Meghalaya after people from Meghalaya vandalized property at a tax gate in a contested area. This happened while police from Meghalaya were watching. Authorities last year had tried negotiations, and they will be sitting down in May to try to resolve the issue at high-level talks.
The northeast of India is a very complex region ethnically and linguistically. We need to note here that states in India are not just administrative divisions. They are based on ethno-linguistic lines. If we go a little deeper, we can consider them nations unto themselves. And that's exactly where the federal structure of India gains its credibility and relevance in ensuring the border tensions like these between Assam and Meghalaya are resolved as much as possible. border tensions between states are not uncommon. Just to give you a couple of examples, Karnataka and Maharashtra have similar tensions along near Belgaum, near central India, and Haryana and Punjab had similar tensions. The worst probably was between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, especially with river water sharing. When we talk about Assam and Northeast region specifically, we should underline that the supply routes to Meghalaya's capital typically goes through Assam's capital, that is Guwahati, until very recently. So the inflammation of tensions in the region is quite critical for supply routes and all other communications through land routes. So we just have to hope that the central government as well as the state governments come to the negotiating table and resolve these tensions, because they take a very tribal nature if they do get inflamed. It may also lead to blockade across the northeast Indian region.
Right. In Pakistan, two Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan terrorists were killed in a gunfight in Rajanpur. This is in Punjab in the south. 3 terrorists have fled. Now, this comes as the TTP has been enhancing its networks across Punjab.
This only shows that the Taliban has a capability to strike even in provinces like Punjab, despite the heavy-handed approach of the army and the police force.
Yeah. Lastly, in Europe, Russia said that peace proposals that take into account Russian considerations deserve more attention globally. This comes after Brazil's president called for the creation of a peace group involving countries that are not involved in the war, like China and the United Arab Emirates. The peace group would mediate between Russia and Ukraine. This also comes as the West, who do have a favorable view of the current Brazilian president as opposed to the former right-wing populist Bolsonaro, have been very critical of his statements with regards to the war. He said that Zelensky is as responsible as Putin, and the West's arming of Ukraine is prolonging the conflict.
That doesn't really surprise me, since the West has a very favorable approach to President Lula. In fact, his return to power was celebrated very recently. Now, the West, as it sits, will be opposed to anything that goes anywhere close to their interests. So such a reaction was expected.
Paul, anything from you?
No, thank you. Very good brief.
Thanks.